This is Knox Street Studios Tech Bridge, where we focus on increasing our technical know-how and productivity. Today, what we're going to focus on is the documentation. Going, finding it, learning how to read it and understand what they're talking about. And then we'll briefly go back and do some things that I really should have done in the last video. Let's jump into it. All right. So what you have in front of you is just the Google screen, right? And so the reason what's in front of you is the Google homepage. The reason why you start here is because a lot of times there are a lot of different places where you can actually find information. And so part of what this is all about is figuring out how you think and where the good sources for information for you. Right? So one of them is the basic documentation. I will tell you that some people use it, some people don't, but again, it kind of depends on how you learn. So right in the space bar, type in Python documentation. It's a long word. All right, and so you see it right there, docs.python.org. And I can blow this up to make it a little bit bigger. All right, so we're gonna click on it, but also notice right below it, there's Python tutorials, Python 3.3, that would be similar to the 3.7 that I installed here, the standard library, which we really need to get into, etc. Right? I'm gonna click on just documentation. So there's a tutorial, library reference. They're funny. Keep this under your pillow. Nice. Language reference describes syntax and language elements. I've never read that, but given what I do know, that right there is gotta be helpful. Also, Python how-tos, modules, which we really need to talk about modules. So let's click on a couple of these. Let's click on tutorial start here, blah, 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 blah. Using the in Python interpreter, we've already talked about that. Informal. Look at there, numbers, strings, and lists. Those are the next couple of things I'm going to be covering. If statements, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so yeah, so that's a good resource. Language reference, notation, line structure, tokens. Oh yeah, they're getting into it. Data models, objects. Here's something that's unique, just a little nugget. Everything in Python is an object, right? Somebody told me that and I was like, okay. As I learn more and more about it, I am starting to get a deeper understanding of what they were trying to tell me, right? Import stuff, import lib, packages, expressions, compound statements, and we'll actually do a little of that pretty soon. Raise, break, et cetera, and let's see what else. Installing modules. Yes, using pip virtual environments. There is, so modules are, think of them, so you can buy the base model of your car, but then you want to add on extras, right? Tinted windows, trim, larger tires, all that stuff. Well, that's what modules do. It allows for you to give it more productivity and extension of kind of just your base model. That's what your models do, and that's what those import statements do. I don't know how deep we're going to get into that because that can get very, but all of this can get. There are tons and tons of tutorials on the web that you can pull down, and there are different reference. O'Reilly's one. There are different kind of reference books and tutorials you can find, and everybody has their own flavor. And so what I suggest is that you check out, maybe go to the library or go to a bookstore, look at them, start reading through a few of them and see if it's starting to make sense. But again, the most number one important thing that you've got to do is it's got to be in your fingers, man. You got to code, right? So anything you do, you gotta type it out. Okay, so we talked about the focus. The focus today was going to be looking at documentation. We did that. I forgot, as I was looking through some notes, actually looking through the documentation, that I didn't talk about modulo, and I didn't do one or two things as it relates to numbers. And so I'll do it again here in the terminal, and just to show you that. So type in Python 3. There, that opens it. So just to remember, you can add this. So numbers, there are two types of numbers. I don't know if we talked about this, integers and floats. So 2 plus 2 gives you an integer, sort of like in grade school. Is that when we learned it? I think we learned it in grade school. All right. So 5.0 plus 1 should give you, so you know, a decimal point, basically. Okay. All right. So we did this last time. Addition. What we didn't do is we didn't do modulo, right? So 17 divided by 3, well, that's going to give you a long number, right? All right. So now let's go do that again, and let's get the modulo of that. And so this time you use the percentage thing. I'm sorry, and that gives you the remainder, right? So that's 15. 15 is the closest even with 2 left over. 26 divided by 5. 26 divided modulo 5, and that gives you a remainder of 1. Okay. All right. So I didn't go over powers. So 5, the 2 little asterisks, the thing over the 8, that gives you a power. And then that one in particular is a square. This one is another 2 to the 16th power, gives you 65,536. All right, so the other thing is, so let's say you want to say 60. So now a little bit more, we're talking about compounds. 60 minus 2 times 2 divided by 5, right? That gives you 11. So now what it's going to do is, and I didn't talk about order of operation, but order of operation still holds true. It's going to do the power first. It's going to do the stuff in the parentheses first, and then it's going to do the division by 5 last. Okay. I will repeat this as well. All the stuff that I've done. So right now, it's not keeping any of this. It's doing it. In order to do that, you've got to put it in a variable, right? So you can put, and right now I'm using bad variable names. You should use variable names that you can remember and make sense for you, and for you, not just today, but 2 years from now, when you go back and look at it and be like, so using A, B, and C as variable names, it's fine because we're just kind of doing stuff on the side on a scratch piece of paper. But when you think about programming and you think about the life of the program, you really got to think about the variable names. All right. So all that being said, I'm going to use A. So A equals 60 minus 23. All right. So now what I've done is I've stored that value, and that's all we've been doing. We've been creating values. I've stored that value in a variable. In order to call that variable, I just hit A. Okay. So now let's make a variable B and make that 3. So what I can do is say, now I can manipulate those two variables. And when I manipulate those two variables, I manipulate the values inside of them. So A plus B gives you 40. A times B gives you 111. A to the power of B, did I indent? Maybe I did. 50,653. All right, so what happened is that specifically in Python, indentation means something. So I must have hit the tab bar, and that's why I got the error, indentation error. Okay. All right, that's all I wanted to cover today. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, action item. Can't forget. My bad, dude. Action item is, I really need you to go in and start typing, play around with this. I think next time we'll talk a little bit about strings. We'll go back to the documentation, look at what the documentation says about strings. Again, this stuff seems simple, but when you start to really get into it, the better you have a grasp on these basics, the faster along you can go. Thanks for tuning in.